First question is from Jason Remmer. Is tucking the tailbone at the bottom of a deep squat still bad if you're going slow and controlled and maintaining stability in that range of motion?
There's a bit of controversy around this.
It is. There's lots of controversy around it.
I would say generally, for the average person, you probably want to stop your squat depth before this starts to happen, because the spine, as it flexes and extends under load, you run the risk of hitting the end ranges of motion with the spine if you don't have good stability and control. And when you hit that end range of motion, then what starts to support the weight isn't necessarily the muscles around the spine, but rather the spine itself and the disc. And this is when you can start to run into some issues. Now, the reason why this isn't true for everybody is because some flexion and extension in somebody who's strong and got control, as long as it's not at the end range of motion.
If they're active and intense and controlling it in that position, that's one thing. But there are the instances where, you're resting on your spine at that point. Not good.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that there is a natural tucking of the spine. When you hit ass to grass all the way down,
a little bit happens.
Right? Yeah, you're going to see a little bit of a tucking of the tailbone. It's very natural. So it's where it becomes excessive, which, by the way, you normally will feel these in your erectors. If you have excessive flexion and extension of your spine, your low back will be on fire when you're doing these squats. That's how I always know too when I need to address this, is that if I'm starting to feel my low back, those erectors get pumped like crazy and more than I'm feeling in my quads and my glutes, I know that either one, I need to shorten up the range of motion for now, or I need to address some mobility stuff to get to a place where that's comfortable. Now, if you are told you have some sort of a butt wink or tailbone tuck at the bottom and you don't feel bad at all, I would probably say you're fine. Like if you're not feeling your erectors pumped up, you're not feeling any sort of pain at all, you're probably okay.
You got to be tough. I mean, that's tough because people can get away with something and then it become bad. It's funny. It's like you could get, I don't know if you guys ever tested this with a client. You get someone in a split stance, put their front leg on something high, and they can go real deep without any tailbone tuck. Why? Because the back leg is stabilizing their pelvis. With people where this is like it has to happen, you'll see a little bit of tailbone tuck even in a split stance. So it's not common. That's why I typically will recommend for most people, like most people watching this, there's a point where that happens. You can stop just short of that and you're probably below parallel. Like you're still probably doing a pretty damn good deep squat. And there's probably things you can work on that'll prevent that from happening. Things like working on stability, working on mobility of the hips and the ankles that typically will prevent this. The reason why this becomes a controversial thing is because you'll look at like Olympic lifters or advanced lifters and be like, see, it's totally fine. Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother different class of human and skill where it isn't an issue. Just like with a deadlift, like some upper back rounding is totally fine. But for the average person, I'd say, well, let's try not to do that. But at some level, at high levels, and it starts to become kind of okay.
Yeah, just to me, it matters if how excessive it is. I really do think that I've seen cases with clients where it moves and they're completely fine. Then I've seen other cases where it barely moves and it lights their low back on fire. So, I mean, it's kind of a feel your way through this. But your point, an easy fix. So when I know I'm not doing enough of my mobility work, and this is actually an issue of mine, right? So, because I already have a little bit of an excessive pelvic tilt. And then if I'm not addressing my mobility stuff, I'm not also working on my core strength and I'm lifting heavy, I'll have this slight movement at the bottom. I know it right away because, again, I'll start to feel it in my erectors. Like right away, I feel my erectors, which is telling me that there's a little bit of extension flexion going on in my lower back. And so then if I do that, I'll put squat shoes on. And when I put squat shoes on,
yours all ankle,
yeah, because it's all ankle because I'm not addressing my mobility. And when I'm not doing my mobility and I go that and I force myself to go that deep, it deviates. So normally, if you have that much of a wink, there's an area of where you're not as mobile as you should be or can be that you can address to improve it.
Well, this is one of those interesting ones because I know there's like different archetypal type of positions that you have your body in terms of distribution of force. Like we know that like if we have these types of angles, like we can distribute the force a lot more appropriately, and it's not going to rest too much in the joints or in the spine. And so, yeah, I do understand, some coaches preventing if they see that, like preventing them from depth in their squat until, let's say they are working on, a little more stabilized, like controlled type of a movement there. But also, like if you're an experienced lifter and like you've worked your way through that and you have that ability and control, like I'm not going to sit here and harp on you for that.
Yeah.
But if I'm a coach and I'm coaching you and depending on your level, like I'm going to address that way.
Yeah, where this gets stupid is when you see the keyboard trainer warriors who see an Olympic lifter or some like advanced person, you get tailbone tuck. Or like, okay,
Just want to jump on
that's
it.
totally different.
Yeah.